Hey, what's going on, everybody? Grant Temple here, the sales plug. I'm here to connect you with some of the best sales minds in the online business world with the hopes that you take what you learn, sell more, sell better, and you can serve more of your clients at a high level. Today, we've got an awesome guest that I'm excited to speak with, Stormi Banks. I'm super excited to talk with her, and there's going to be a lot you're going to learn from this. So make sure that you're dialed in. Stormi is the CEO of Pinkprint Firm, one of the top grant writing agencies in the US. She's built a multiple seven-figure business, has educated and served hundreds of thousands of clients, and her grant writing services has secured nearly 19 million in grant funding. She's the absolute best at what she does. So, Stormi, thanks for being here. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. That was a great introduction. I gotta write that down for the next person to give me that too.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being here. Let's just dive right into it. So, share with us a bit about you, your story so far, and how Pinkprint Firm came to be.
Yeah, I mean, my story is pretty simple, right? I've done all the jobs, I've done all the business ideas from lemonade trucks to hairstyling, mobile salons to everything you can think of. And now I'm just in a place where I feel like I finally am getting it right in terms of how to genuinely scale a business to where I see it going. I mean, Pinkprint was a really mission forward business that I started in terms of wanting to educate and help people get to their next level. And so it genuinely has started from just giving free resources and advice online. And organically, people were like, well, can you just do the process for us? And I was like, actually, I can. And when I saw how it just ignited a fire in the people and the service just was like, it was crazy. And I was like, well, let's make this a business. Let's do this for real. Let's do this big time. So it that's kind of how it was created, just organically from having a real mission of wanting to help people, and now we're here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I know, I think you initially said you were just going on like Instagram Live sharing it, right? And then people eventually asked you to do the service. Was so in the beginning, I guess, what did that kind of look like? Was it just you collect a couple dollars from someone and say, "Hey, I'll do this for you"? And then how did that evolve, I guess, into a larger sales process?
Yeah, it was like going on live teaching people, and then from Instagram Live it became like free Zoom classes where I would like spend an evening teaching people how to do it. And then it was like, okay, $5 for the Zoom class. And then it was like, oh, can you do this for us? And I was like, yeah, $200 and I can do it for you. And at that time I was basically a middlemaning. I was paying contractors to actually complete the like grant writing work. And so once I really saw like, oh, this is working, like these proposals are getting people funding, or like us applying is like getting people funding. That's when I was like, I'm going to become a grant writer as well. So I can just be able to know the process better, know how everything is working, like really just dive into it. Because what I was teaching was simply based on my own experience. I had won a couple grants, had some strategies that I had used, and got my previous business funded. So I was like, okay, let me really go crazy into this and dive deep. And then from there, charging $200, I was like, I need a Shopify now because I was doing like PayPal, then I started kind of like getting the systems together and everything in order. And now, $200 couldn't even get me out the bed. So it's kind of crazy how it all works out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I like that I think the foundations of you being able to sell was just that you were providing value, right? Like you had this knowledge, you learned, gained the skills, and people just organically started asking you to do that for them. And I feel that a lot of your selling really is still done by that, right? Like you have a really strong brand that provides value, you educate and inspire people. So, what is your thought process behind, getting clients to be attracted to you and ultimately buy your services?
I have a big thing of just being transparent, right, with my people. And I think when we first started offering grants and we would do the Zoom classes, we also had like a free community through Mighty Networks that we still have, but that was just like a resource place to just dump thoughts in. And just thinking through my thoughts and writing it out to the community, people were like catching so much information, so much value. And I just learned that they got to know me as a person so much in my values and what I stand for, that they just had an innate trust of like what I was going to do if they were to work with me as a service provider as well. And that kind of like personability. I don't know if that's the right word, but being that personable, it built a trust that still resonates with our audience to this day through our campaigns. And I think it stems from just being like, I'm going to tell y'all everything good, bad, and ugly. And then if you still love me, pay me.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and I definitely find that with, again, your brand, your services, people do trust you. I think that's where a lot of the reason that they buy from you, they believe you, they trust you, and they see that the work that you've done is legit. I feel like you're transparent in a lot of your content, a lot of the things that you do. So to a certain extent, it may repel some people, but also I think you've got some like diehard fans, like people that are, hey, I'm gonna ride or die with her and buy what she has. Um, how do you? I think a part of that comes from deeply understanding your target customers, right? So I guess tell me a little bit about your approach and understanding exactly where people are at, what they need, and positioning yourself as a trustworthy person.
Yeah, the really good thing about this business is that I am the customer. And so I can think in terms of like, what do I really need? I don't think that I would be able to run or build a successful company to serve an audience that I haven't been or have that I haven't understood. Being a woman of color, being a business owner, being someone who needed grants at one point in time, who didn't have the credit, who didn't have the revenue, who didn't have the things, I'm literally in my marketing, in my campaigning, I'm just talking to me. I'm talking to that old person, and I can really like sit and think about where was I at that time? Like, what was I needing? Who did I need? Like, who did I wish I could have found in that time? And then I just created Pink Print to be that persona. Like, we are the big sis who has the resources, who has the community, who has the results. We're that person for all the women who were me in that situation. And there's, lo and behold, millions of them, thank God for Pink Print, but there's millions of them who needed that person that I've created through the Pink Print firm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great answer, just speaking to, really who you were before. And I do think that's important, right? It's kind of like your ideal target customer is you. So you can just speak to your experience, and that does develop that trust. And it's definitely something that I think um has been the backbone of the brand, it seems, as well. You've got a very strong brand. I haven't seen quite as many people um I guess in the online business world develop that sort of brand. How's that evolved from maybe day one to where it is now? Like what's that been like for you watching Pink Print as a brand evolve?
Yeah, what's crazy is sometimes I think I don't really understand what it really is to other people until we like get out at the events and like people are like, this saved my life, or like I built a seven-figure business off of grants, or like I came to one of your classes and got 50,000 in funding. Like, I don't really understand the impact that it has. So unfortunately, um, I'm still trying to get to a next level. Like I'm always considering what's next. I think from how it's evolved from when it started, it started really with just Stormi as a personal brand, in that
Mhm.
community, in those classes. And then what I really started doing early on that I think was like a game changer was Pink Print started hosting events or like sponsoring events. And so when you would be at a Pink Print event, you would feel what we wanted you to feel, that big sister energy, that like resource energy. Like, you would feel what we wanted you to get from it. Or when we would sponsor events, we would sponsor events and want to create that experience there too. And we were paying less at that time than what we would pay for like an ad, like to get a, acquisition of a new customer now. So if I'm like, okay, there's 300 people in that event, I'm spending 3,000 to, be a sponsor, I could get my hands on way more leads for cheaper and give them a better experience with the brand. So that's what we did early on. We were sponsoring tons of events, hosting little pop-ups here and there, doing tours. And I think that's when people really fell in love with the brand more so than just the personal Stormi Banks person, because they were like, oh, we see it, we feel it, it's becoming a tangible thing. We have the merch at home and we're doing the things and we're like Pink Print, like it became a
Yep.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that you pointed out that it's through some of these events, because what I want to go into in a little bit here on the more tactical side of things, I want to go the high level here for a moment, but you run great like campaigns or promotional cycles for, if that's the right way to put it, right? Where you'll have like a couple months where you're almost rebranded, I guess would be, I don't want to say rebranded completely, but like there's a theme to it, right? And it all leads up to an event, and then you have a promotion on your services there. So what's give me the high level thought process behind running those sort of campaigns, because I haven't seen many people do that as effectively as you do it.
Yeah, I think what comes from the campaigns, I mean, for one, I'm the laziest CEO entrepreneur that you're going to meet. Like, and so I play into that and I let that be a strength for me. So I'm like, okay, if I can run a campaign for 3 months, that means less things that I have to think about doing next. And so I'm like, let's just make a movie and do 4 campaigns a year, 3 campaigns a year that we can just really harp on. So I'm like, in order to draw a campaign out that long, we need an event, we need a virtual, we need a pop up, we need a that. Like there has to be multiple things happening in order to really draw it out so that I don't have to think about a next thing to do. So it's really a lazy strategy that helps me think about other things. It's like, every day when you have to think about what you're going to eat, you're like, I don't want to make another decision about what I want to eat. I want to just have my food prepared. So that's kind of how it feels for me. And it keeps me a little bit sharper on just my own mental strategy of things that I want to do high level for the business so that I don't have to think about that. But then it also gives them, our clients and our customers, time to really connect with what we're trying to do. Like with the Black Panther Black Friday campaign that we just did, we still have people walking around like fist up saying the revolution. You know what I'm saying? And it gives them a chance to really connect with what is the overarching goal of what we're trying to do through our messaging, through our tone, and through our visuals.
Yeah. Yeah, and then at the end, obviously, it connects into being able to, because it's a lot of content, value, 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 a lot of education, and then you have your offer at the end. Why do you think that sort of campaign and doing those sort of promotions followed by an educational or in-person experience, like the experience that you provide at the end of that campaign, why do you think that leads to, good success as far as sales go at the end of that?
Well, I think with us, our services are not like low tiered, right? We probably have a more premium price in the marketplace for what we do. So I think that especially if we're just thinking in terms of like a new customer for the first time seeing us, we got to take them through a couple of things before we're like, all right, $4,000, thank you. We gotta smooth them over a little bit more and let them get to know us. So I think having a 3 month long campaign where it's like, hey, meet us at this event, hey, come to this virtual seminar, hey, meet us here, do this, do that, education, value, it gives them more opportunity to say, I like them. Yeah, they are good people. I like how they're doing things. I like the way they're working it. And then kind of at the end saying, okay, well, now that you like us, now that you love us, here's how you can work with us and be with us for X amount of time or whatever the offer may be. But I think it's just really understanding like our price point and knowing that we got to kind of, rub some shoulders to get people to be comfortable paying that price point up front.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's that it's extremely impactful, like I've seen it play out, and it again, I really haven't seen many people do that, as effectively as you do. Like there really is a notable difference in the way your content shifts. And I think when you said it kind of is a lazy way to do it to a certain extent, I guess it does kind of take the pressure off creating like new content, new ideas. Like all the content's just geared towards the end event or the brand in general for that time frame. Does that make it easier for you to kind of batch out content and just get it done and know that you've got posts going out without having to think too much about what to post?
Oh, heck yeah. And crazy thing, the way that we actually do our content is we mostly will shoot it at like one time, like within 1 to 2 days. And we just actually we film a bunch of stuff in different outfits, whatever, and then we film a bunch of endings. So we'll change out the ending. So it'll be like one piece of content that you might have already seen, but we've changed now the call to action. Like, okay, we'll use this same piece of content that went really viral. Hey, if you're a small business owner, here's how you can get debt-free funding for your business. And instead of saying join this free seminar, now we're just changing out the ending to say click this link to go to this, or now we're saying comment this to do that. When I tell you, I'm like, why wasn't I doing this way earlier? Because I have a 10 endings to 20 videos, and now I have 40 videos. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it's such a powerful thing because I know a lot of times people struggle with, creating content. It's like having to come up with a new, fresh idea every single time. And I think I've heard someone say this one time just about like marketing in general. And someone on like a podcast and they were like, it's funny, I've literally just been saying the same thing like over and over and over again for X amount, just in X amount of different ways. And I think that can take the pressure off of where there's an end goal in mind, right? Like you want people to follow your brand, be at the event that you're going to hold. It's easy just to kind of make content around that. Like you already know what the content's going to be about. You're not creating new ideas every single time.
Yeah, and I mean, from what I would 100% agree with that. And I've really felt like marketing is like a creative way to say the same thing over and over again. Like that's really how I feel. Cause I'm like, if people really scrolled down our page or went to our YouTube, like we've said this so many times, but
Yeah.
nice to keep it fresh and keep ourselves at the front of the line. And I also think with doing the campaigning, you don't see a lot of grant writing agencies doing this type of campaigning. Like we're really envisioning our agency as a product, and so I'm not really competing with service-based industries. I'm competing with like product-based companies who are like doing these crazy launches of products or like these awesome collaborations. I'm like, how do we position Pinkprint as a premier product so that people can really understand the tangible results that they'll get with the service? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, and kinda it transition into that, right, is that people need to have conviction, right? And really the way you get conviction is by giving people a great customer experience, which you do. You get results for your clients, right? You do really, really well. So, um, how much importance do you put on delivering a good product, a good service, and making sure that you get results for your clients so it can feed back into the sales process?
Oh, that I think that is I mean, if we were making up the pie of what pink print is, I think that that's like 75%, and that's just something I'm also always thinking about in terms of training team, better leadership. How do we get better results, keep us on point? How do we find better customers to get better results? That's major because if someone has a bad experience, even if they don't write a review, they're talking about it with their friend, and then their friend sees you online. They're like, "Oh, this is the company that she said she didn't like." If you have a bad reputation, whether this is you as a person, you as a business, it spreads really fast. And I would just appreciate like, people being able to say that I enjoyed working with the Pink Print team.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, when that's the sentiment around it, you're really getting results. It obviously helps the entire process. So I love that you put such a strong emphasis on that. And it's worth noting as well, I think, in the actual service that you provide, which is um writing grant proposals, research and applying to grants on businesses' behalf so they can win grants. In a way, you're really selling whoever's given that grant money on the business, right? So that's its own sales skill in itself. So I guess how do you approach kind of in that way, like getting in a person who's going to give a business money? Like how do you get in their mind and position your client's business as like that fit? How do you make that sale happen?
Yeah, I do think of grants as sales, and that might be why Pink Print is really good at it, is because we're not thinking of it in a way of like desperation. The first kind of technique that I've always used is that I'm the buyer and not the seller in every situation. Like there's nothing that I need in this world, right? I'm everything that I ever needed. And if you want to be around me, or if you want to even matter, I don't even want to take your money. I want your money to work with me and not for me, so when I'm going to grant tours, I'm never desperate. I'm always like, hey, if this works out, this works out. If it doesn't, like, there's other people that are going to invest in me. And honestly, they're going to get in on the ground floor and they're going to be able to see me rise up, and you're going to be the one looking out the window. And I think also adding a little bit of fear for like where I know that I'm going. So it takes a little bit of strategy of like actually having measurable results in your business as when you're going for grants to say, I mean, hey, we've only been open for 1 year, but since we've been open for a year, we've done this, this, that, and the third, and industry standard is like way below this. So honestly, if you don't fund us the money, kind of look like a hater. And so I really talk to them in the sense of that I'm the buyer with measurable results to showcase why I'm the best and what that looks like. And then also, um, I think that what we do too is we really listen to what they want. Like we do the extra work to say, let's go to the webinar that they're hosting or the event that they're hosting, or, let's read their whole website, read all of the stuff so that we can see what are they really looking for? Because once you know what someone's looking for, it's easy to become the obvious choice, which is what I always call it. So I think those are like my sales tactics when it comes to getting grant funding.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's such a good point. And I guess kind of the reason I asked that as well is because it is important that you're selling your business or your clients, but it's rooted in the same principles. Like what you just said is rooted in the same principles as anyone can do to get clients, right? Is positioning yourself as the thing that they need to a certain extent.
Mhm.
Um, so I love that. And I think a lot of people, so I think it's mainly going to be my goal is to have mainly online business owners, watching this of some sort, getting grants for online business owners, whether they're kind of in coaching or consulting or agencies, tech, software, anything like that. Are any and all of those people able to get grants?
100%. 100%. Grants is so multifaceted. There's so many opportunities that are out there. I always tell people, there's pretty much no grant that I've ever seen. Like I've seen for scuba divers, for jewelry makers, from online businesses to, you'll be surprised what someone else is willing to give their money for. So there's so many grants out there. And I encourage honestly everyone to make it part of their business strategy to at least get a couple of debt-free dollars every year to really support some initiatives.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think about, I've never heard of another like online business go, hey, I can get a grant. Like I think even people are really kind of constrained in their mind of like who can get grants. And I think it's a great opportunity, particularly for people online, right? Like coaching, consultants, agencies. A lot of their money or a lot of money could be used for like free marketing, right? Like if you could get a grant to run ad campaigns to your coaching program or your software, your agency, like imagine just having free money to run on ads. We know that the whole
Yeah,
game of ads is spending money to make it back. Imagine if you had 5, 10, 20 grand for free, essentially, to be able to get
right.
clients, right? Like how impactful can that be?
Crazy. Crazy work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So anyone watching this, definitely consider that, right? And kind of the last part, wrapping up this portion of the interview here. What's the impact you want to leave with your business and personal brand? I know through our conversations that's something you think a lot about. So what is the impact you want to leave with Pink Print Firm and Stormy Banks?
Yeah, I mean, well, for one, I always wanted people to feel worthy. Like you said, imagine you start this business from scratch from an idea that you have, and one day you do an application and someone says, you've been approved for this $100,000 grant. The worth that you would feel, the validation that you would feel from what you started, that someone else believed in it. Like you can't explain that. I don't know. When you win a grant, it's just a certain type of way you walk and the way your chest pokes out that you just know, like, I'm doing something worthwhile here because someone else validated that. And then longer term is, the goal is to end up selling Pink Print once all is said and done. And I just think being a woman of color and having the background that I have, to be able to have a 8, 10 figure exit, that's like history for our culture. And I would love to be able to have a stamp on that and be able to open the doors that we can bring more women of color under that lane to do similar things as well. So, my overall goal is helping people get money, and that looks a lot, that looks different along the journey of my legacy.
Yeah, that's crazy. It is, I don't know, the crazy not in a bad way, right? Just I know the level of impact that you can have, right? Like I've seen it with the services and the goals you have to exit. I think it's awesome. I'm excited to see you along the journey, and I got no doubt you'll make it happen. Um, but kind of wrapping up this portion, where can our listeners hear from you, learn from you, and buy and utilize your services?
Yeah, I'm all over the socials. If you just look up like Stormy Banks, you can find YouTube, you can find Instagram, you can find TikTok, Facebook, everything. Also, if you're ever interested, just look up Pink Print Firm, www.pinkprintfirm.com, and we're ready and willing to work with anyone we can.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for this portion here. Anyone listening, appreciate you being here. And we're going to transition into the other side of the interview here, diving more into the tactical side of things. So I know we talked about it at like a good bit, but I want to go a little more in depth, I guess, just more granular things people can take and really apply regarding running either a campaign or a promotional cycle where you're kind of going, hey, this is the goal for this 3 month window, and just a little more details, I guess, as far as instead of the higher level strategy. So, how do you go about structuring a campaign or promotional cycle like this? Like, can you break down the key phases and goals for each stage and what that looks like?
Yeah. And I'm trying to think. So structuring a campaign, key phases and cycles that we do. So for this last one specifically, it always starts with what do you want the customers to get out of it? You know, what's the overarching goal that you want them to feel from it? And then I start with that emotion. So whatever the emotion is, I start there. And then I figure out how do we utilize that emotion to reach, a sales goal as we are in business. So from that point, I can say, okay, from this emotion, based on other things we've done with the same kind of desire or impact, we can make 500K from this, or we can make $1 million from this campaign. And then once I have like kind of the goal that I want to reach financially, then I break down the budget. I think a budget is really important for a campaign, and you really do need to have a budget. So we start with the budget. After that, the phases work like if we're doing a 3 month campaign. First phase for me is teaser/introduction. So I want to let people know that, hey, we have something coming out, or this is what it's going to feel like, or this is what this kind of looks like. And then kind of like a soft introduction to what it is. Um, Second phase, like month 2, is all about introducing all of the benefits that they're going to get from this opportunity. So hey y'all, we have a virtual seminar we're going to do, we have a in-person event that we're going to host, we have this, or whatever the things are that we're doing, or this collaboration. So kind of showing them all the benefits. And then phase 3 is utilizing the introduction and the benefits to now show you how you can continue working with us, to kind of let them know like, okay, this is coming to an end, but you can still work with Pink Print. I think for me, when it comes to the marketing aspect, we really keep it really simple, Grant. We really do. We just do the basics. I mean, having ads, emails, text, social should all be aligning. So whatever your map out is going to be, you need to have a messaging for each different phase of that. Whenever you make a post, the email should say the same thing, the text should say the similar things, and the ads should be saying the same things, so that people can get a cohesive experience. And other than doing those things, we kind of that's really how we stick to our campaigns. Every campaign we do an event, we're in-person people. We think that events really make the thing pop. Um, and that's kind of how we be rocking.
Yeah, yeah, and it's certainly effective. I know when you do, or at least a couple times you've done the in person, you of course then do virtual as well on the back end of that, I guess, to make sure you reach your wider audience as well, right?
Yeah, if we do it in person in Atlanta, so to speak, we know that not everyone's going to be able to come. And so, one thing people have always asked us when we do in persons is like, oh, is there going to be a virtual option for the event? And so, we already know there's interest there. So, we just end up doing like a week after the event, we'll be like, all right, y'all, we're going to keep this thing going and we're going to launch the virtual experience so that the people who didn't get the chance to go, but they've seen for a week all of the amazing recap videos and people's stories and they've missed out and now they're like, yes, finally I get my chance. And it increases the show up rate for virtual events if you do it after an event where people can see the hype of what it was. We've done it on the front end in the past and we've just had a better show up rate when we do it on the back end.
Yeah. That's a little golden nugget there that I don't think a lot of people take into consideration, right? Is because I've seen you do that when you have the in-person event, like blow up your stories with resharing other people's stories or you interacting with the people there. And I guess that really does make for a more compelling reason for someone to get on virtually as well. Like it's that FOMO, right? You're bringing energy, and they're like, "Dang, I wish I was there." Well, what's the next best thing? Right. And I think it's an important principle in sales too, is meeting your customer where they're at. Right. It's like, well, look, the reality is not everyone can get to Atlanta, but you still have that option for them. So you can kind of build up that FOMO, but still be able to meet your customer where they're at. And I'm sure they appreciate that.
100%. 100%. We look like the thoughtful, amazing, accommodating team, which we are. And so I think it just works better that way for sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's powerful. And how do you you've had some great themes for your campaigns as well. So how do you come up with a compelling theme for the campaign? And I guess what role do you think that plays in actually engaging your audience?
The themes of the campaigns will be based on something that makes sense based on whatever that initial emotion is that we want to get out of it. So like when we did the Black Friday one, like we wanted a revolution. We really wanted to evoke anger in people. That was like the overarching mission and emotion that we wanted to drive. We wanted people to be mad about the fact that they're in debt. They're mad that they didn't know grants existed. They're mad that they didn't have the education. Like we wanted to really ignite them to want to revolutionize the way they think about getting funding. And so, I mean, then you're starting to do research. Like when you think of revolution, where do you think of? When you think of like angry or like marching, I'm like, what do you really think of? And so when we chose the Panther Party as like part of that homage, we wanted to do that, but we also wanted to do it in a way where it was still inviting to, people who aren't Black Panthers or, Black.
Right.
And so that was also something we had to think about during that campaign of is like educating people on what this campaign really means. And so yeah, that's kind of how that started, is with the emotion. And then we figured out like what will really make this slap. Okay, we got to be militant, we got to be angry, we got to be mad at the world. They tricked us into this situation. And
Yeah.
just feeling like we like getting on the side of our customers, getting on their side, and then also like some creative flair. You want to have fun with it too, right? You want to be like, this is enjoyable. You don't want to. I don't want to do a campaign where I'm not actually enjoying it. Like I liked putting on the afro and doing I enjoyed becoming
Yeah.
the character to make it all work out. So it's a part of strategy, fun, emotion, and then just also considering what will this long term last on our customers, or how will it last.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's such a good point. And the content was fire, by the way. I love that whole like the theme. It was kind of a little black and white, or like I don't know if they removed all the color from some of the posts, but it was like that faded color. There was a whole look to it, and you could noticeably tell the way like the content shifted. And I thought that was it was so powerful. There was intention behind it. You know what I mean? Everything looked intentional, so it looks uniform, and it's like, okay, these people know what they're doing. Like they're really, really making this happen. And I think a powerful principle, kind of in relation to sales as well, that I think people can utilize more, that campaign was kind of centered around, is like finding a common enemy. And I think at times people think enemy is like it has to be a person, like your neighbor that you don't like or something like that. But an enemy can just be debt, right? Like you found a common enemy of people and going, hey, let's rally around this common enemy. We share this. Um, was that kind of a thought process behind that as well? Like finding the common enemy and not exploiting it in a bad way, but to a certain extent, like exploiting that.
Yeah, I think maybe 2 months before that campaign, I read How to Build a Cult Following, and that was, like, one of the things that was in that book was, having a common enemy, or, like, why people go to church is because they believe in something and they, have a common belief system, and so you definitely doing a campaign, you need to figure out what's gonna be the belief system and thread throughout this campaign that people really actually, resonate with and can relate to. So that's definitely a part of the process, 100%.
Yeah. 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 Now doing all that, right? So the campaign, you come up with the theme, you lay out the kind of groundwork so you know how it's all going to run. There's intentionality behind it. Like you said, you've got a pre-promotion where you're starting to tease the idea and maybe more of the, I don't know, truly promoting the event, but leading up to the event and actually delivering on it. So um how do you make sure this could be a broad question, right? See, there's probably a ton of things you could go into, but we'll start here in this point, I guess, is how do you make sure you deliver a good event, right? That people, one, like want to be at, but also don't regret going to. You know what I mean? They're like, dang, that was dope. When I saw your stories, like people were hype outside of the event waiting to go in. I'm like, man, you really drum it up. How do you go about delivering a great event?
A lot of logistical planning. I think honestly for the clinic, it was just considering at each touch point. So soon as somebody gets there, we've already told them online, right? It's first come, first serve. We're starting at this time. Like this is what's gonna be. So what we already knew is that there was going to be a line. So we're being very considerate of what are the people in the line experiencing in terms of, okay, their feet are hurting, they standing up, their legs is hurting. How can we make that process enjoyable? What can we bring to their table before they even get in so that we don't lose the line or lose the crowd? Then we're also thinking, what's the wow factor once somebody has been standing in line, they finally get in, what do they want to immediately feel? And then thinking about those different touch points at the different journeys that people are at, kind of curating moments for them to experience and be really happy about. So if you go through a whole event, the whole event, I wasn't in the event, I would come pop out, do a speech, do my photos, and kind of go back. And that was intentional simply because it was like, okay, they go through, they're at the debt, they're at the clinic area, they get their debt paid off, now they're going through, they're enjoying the activations, we have like the Panthers out there, the mascots out there, and now it's like before I leave, oh, Stormy, yes, she's coming to speak, and it's like becomes like, you've gotten everything that you thought was going to happen. Also, there's a lot of pre-planning, so for the people who were coming to the event, we were, as they were like signing up and registering to come, we were actually having them fill out forms of like, what are your expectations? Like we were like very clearly understanding what do they think is happening at this event. Like some people are like, oh, it's a seminar, I'm coming for a grant seminar, I want to learn about grants, or oh, I'm coming because you guys said you're paying up to $50,000 in debt. Like we knew what the highlights of it were going to be before we got there, and so we centered the event around the majority of the highlights that people were expecting to come into. And then we just were thoughtful in terms of like, bathroom, just logistical stuff that people want to even consider. Like you go to an event and you just want to be treated nice and kind, and like someone cared that you got out your bed, put on your clothes, drove your car, showed up, paid your gas money, and now you're here at the event and you just want people to be happy to see you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a good thought process behind it because again, the questionnaire too, asking people what they're expecting because again, it's along the lines of meeting people where they're at, right? It's like a recurring theme in sales, like, all right, meet this person where they're at, figure out what they're expecting so you can position yourself. And it was funny. It was, I think sometimes we can overcomplicate some things, but I watched this girl, she couldn't have been older than 19 and she had like just started her online business and she was on a podcast of sorts, but the way she said it, I was like, man, it's so simple. She was like, man, I just got to give the people what they want. And it was like such a simple way of like, all right, just figure out what people want and give it to them, you know? And I feel like you're doing that in your events with that process. Like, all right, what do people want and how can I give it to them? So how do you I guess how do you go about tying all of that into kind of priming the audience to actually become customers of your, higher end services?
How do we prime them in terms of using the event or
Yeah, I guess, yeah, the event as a whole, but I delivering value as well, right? And educating and making sure that they're ready to become customers. I guess what gets a person from the event to a customer?
I think it's feeling seen is when people make decisions. And that's in the whole thing. I think it like I said in the beginning, it takes the whole campaign to get somebody to say yes, honestly. Because if you know their struggle, like, okay, you're struggling with debt. Yes, finally, somebody who understands, like, it is stressful. I'm struggling in my business. And then you're like, okay, here's a solution for you. You can go for grants. Okay, but then now I got another problem because I don't know how to get grants. Okay, well, we're hosting a virtual seminar. Oh, that's amazing. I'll come to that. But now I need help with my debt because I'm stressed out and I got to do this. Oh, well, we're paying off the debt. So come do this. And I think the whole time just giving them the solutions that make them feel seen of like they're thinking for me. Like people have decision fatigue. And so I try to think for our customers as much as possible. Like, what are they going to think after this? Okay, they come to the clinic. Now, what are they thinking? They do this. Now, what are they thinking? They go to the virtual event. Now, what are they thinking? How do we solve it for them before they even have to ask so that when it comes to saying, hey, this costs $900, it's like, yeah, I'm going to pay you because you're thinking already for me so much that it's like an easy opportunity. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what helps us get them from point A to point B. But again, it takes you, like the lady said, knowing what they want. Sales is not just, I have this dope product that works so well. It's only $5. Please buy it. It's really like hey, you've been struggling with, X, Y, and Z, and me too. And I found this solution that really works. And matter of fact, I created one that's better from when I tried the other one. So try mine for free, try it first. And then once you're hooked, subscription. You know what I mean? So it's really just like being open, honest, vulnerable, and seeing people and just answering their questions before they even have to ask them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a powerful thing is when it happens, right? It's kind of funny. It's like commercials, right? I hate watching commercials, but have you ever seen something on TV where you're like, all of a sudden you're watching, you're like, dang, this person's in my head. You know what I mean? Like they hit on every single thing. It's like, dang, like that resonated. I think that's what we need to be able to do through our content or our events or whatever, however delivering to people is, yeah, I mean, making it feel like, dang, this person's in my head. And like you said, kind of remove the decisions. Like, well, you walk them along the way. Like, if they knew what to do already, they'd be doing it, right? It's like you've got to bring them to that point. And if you can do that, it develops the trust, and then your service becomes like a no-brainer, right? Like they're like, of course I'm gonna do this. It makes sense.
Yep, exactly. And that just takes to be able to really actually execute that, it takes knowing your customer. So I think in pink print years, what really worked well is that we were doing all those classes at first. I'm talking about we've done hundreds of free classes in the beginning. We met so many people, so many of our customers, so many people who like are literally our same avatar to this day. And we just were talking to them. We were like sitting on calls for 3, 4 hours, just doing Q&A, like listening, right? Like we have so much data on what our customers are thinking that it's really not that hard for us to like make something that they'll appreciate now, but it took that groundwork. I would tell anyone, invite your customers right now and just be like, hey, y'all, come to a free Q&A. Like, we just want to answer questions. You'll get so much in terms of like messaging that you can utilize for year. I'm talking about so much content that you'll have. And people will be like, exactly. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hey, I love that you say that because I've seen I want to say a narrative, right? Social media is pretty good at kind of like dialing in on you once you watch something, but I've seen this kind of narrative online, so to speak. I think it's particularly in like the coaching world where it's like, oh, high leverage business for me. Like, you just have to speak to your customers, but you don't need to take sales calls. You don't need to do this. Just create content and attract a person. And it's like, no, you need to have those conversations, right? So you know what content to create. And like you said, you laid all that groundwork through hundreds of lives and Q&As. So when you go to make your content or make your promotions or sell, you already know what they're thinking. You're not even questioning it. You know it intimately, which makes
Mhm.
the sales process that much easier.
100%. Because I mean, how do you get to know you? It's like when you're dating someone, right? You guys can be texting all day long, here and there, but until you like really see them, see their mannerisms, how they move, because man, what was so good when we were first doing Pink Print. I really missed the beginning days because we will be on these Zooms and it will be somebody who will be asking like a generic grant question that anyone would ask, but their emotion behind how they asked the question was really a big thing for me. So you would have somebody who would be like, I would just get done explaining, here's how you do the whole grant process. And they're like, yeah, but can a firefighter, can I get a grant? And it's not just what they're asking, it's also how they're doing it emotionally, how it's coming out of their body. And if you can also tap into not just like, oh yeah, anybody can win a grant, even if you're a firefighter, like, okay, cool, that's great messaging that will attract firefighters who thought they couldn't get grants. But if you can say, if you feel like your business is not worthy to get grants because you don't deem it as a big business, or you don't think that it's helping enough people, or you don't like, if you can really feel the emotion behind the question and message for that, that's what really changed the life. And I'm telling you, what book helped me be able to do that is, it's called Nonviolent Communication. It helps you tune into the emotion behind the words. And that's how I like to market, is the emotion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. And what was that book again? Repeat that for us.
Nonviolent, yeah, Nonviolent Communication is a toppest tierest book.
Okay. All right. Well, that's something I'm going to add to my list for sure, and everyone else should. And I think that that principle goes along the same kind of vein. I feel like is I've seen someone position it this way, or more than someone, a couple people, right? You can speak to people's problems, but you almost need to speak to like the symptoms of the problem, right? So in this case, it could be, debt in their business. Like, oh, do you have a debt in your business? That sucks, right? Like everyone knows it sucks, but here's how I can help you. Or do you lay awake at night
Mm-hmm.
stressed? You can't get sleep, your diet's messed up, you don't feel like exercising because you're under the constant weight of debt for your
Mm-hmm.
business, right? Like when you can tap into those sort of things, it hits so much harder. And that's what makes people feel like seen, heard, and understood.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And that's when the sale becomes easy. But it's not also, new salespeople, they want to just hurry up and buy, hurry up and buy. They're like on that hurry up and buy, but it really is. It's a tango that you get to do. And if you really love sales, you enjoy the tango. You enjoy taking them out to dinner, opening their door. You enjoy pulling out their chair and setting the napkin, an elegant evening. And then when you get the win, it doesn't feel like persuaded. They're going to be happy about that purchase too. Like they're like, well, I feel good about working with this company because they really took the time to woo me. And no matter what the outcome is, as long as you have a good service and a good experience with the service part of it, I'm still happy that I chose them because how they make me feel. And that goes a long way.
Yeah, that's powerful. I love it. I love it. Kind of wrapping up on this end of it here. So once you're done with the campaign, measuring the success, I guess what are some of the, based off, I guess, what you set out to do, right? You kind of measure it directly against that. But once you're done with the campaign, what are some of the things that you look at to go, this was a success. Maybe here's what I expected to happen and either did or didn't. And here's what I didn't expect to happen that either did or didn't, right? What does measuring that campaign success look like?
Um, a lot of it is for me is staying power. So after we do a campaign, if no one's talking about it once it's done, like it was whack. Like even if we made the money or whatever, like it was whack, honestly. Um, it felt like it probably was like a money grab situation or like something that just didn't like really slap. But if people are like seeing you at events and they're like, I love that such and such y'all did, or when y'all did this, it was super dope. Like staying power is really means a lot, because again, when I think of pink print, I think of it like a product. So when you go in the store and you pick out a Gatorade, how you drink it is one experience, but then the aftertaste is a whole nother experience of why you would or would not recommend somebody drinking Gatorade. And if we can get the right aftertaste after a whole campaign, honestly, I like that better than the campaign itself, because if you drink a Gatorade and you still have this like sweet, nice flavor on your tongue, you're thinking about it all day. I want to be in your mind. I want to be in your soul. Like I want pink print to be a part of your life. So that's a big thing for me, is the staying power. And then of course, the metrics, the money, also really big for me on is how our team worked together and how it built the team together. I think after the last campaign we did, I've seen the team be a lot more closer, in terms of just like enjoying what they're doing. So that's a big factor for me too. And then of course, also I'm looking at how many leads do we have. If we didn't get everyone to buy right here and right now, the question for me would be, how many people can we still sell on? Like we spent all this money, sure we made money back, sure we did what we need to do, but do we still have people in the pot that we can work them to make them want to work with us? And now the question is, how do we do this? And so that's kind of what creates the next campaign. Is my next campaign is built off of the people that said no, and I want to see, what do I need to do to make them say yes? And then I kind of go from there.
That's a absolute golden nugget. It's so funny too. I want to say funny. It's maybe not the right word. It's just an expression, but how like easy this comes off, your tongue, right? Like you're just saying because it's what you do, but it's because you have so much experience doing it. And again, I think the way you run these campaigns, it's just something that I feel like people envision in their mind. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like running a sort of campaign, but it's like you executed at a very high level. Now, surely, right? There's some people that'll look at that and I want them to understand that you started at zero. You didn't have any followers. You learned, you put all the work in to be able to execute this, right? Because some people I'm sure will listen to this like, well, I don't have hundreds of thousand followers or a seven-figure business yet. Like I can't do that, is whatever limiting beliefs, right? So what advice would you give to someone who wants to run sort of a campaign style promotion to sell their services, even if they're in a different industry or have a smaller audience? Like, how would you say, like, how to get going with one of those?
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. We were doing this in the beginning. When we were hosting classes, we were still running class campaigns, free classes, but we were still running a campaign. I think a campaign to me is just being consistent with one particular messaging and visual over a course of a period of time to reach a certain goal, right? Anyone can do that. So if you, no matter what budget you have, if you can write an email or write a caption or record a video in your house, just think of the visual aspect. Think of what colors do you want to utilize, keep it consistent. What messaging and tone of messaging do you want to use, keep it consistent in the content. Figure out what time period you want to do it for, and you just kind of like put the stuff out during that time. I think too, like I was saying in the beginning, each campaign definitely needs to have its own emotional feel and draw. And I mean, thank God for my assistant ChatGPT, because I have the best assistant in the world. That brother be working. And I get on, I go and I'll ask Chat, I'll be like, map this out for me. I'll just say my idea. Like, okay, this is my idea. This is what I want to do. This is the emotion I want to, invoke in people. This is how I want them to feel. And I need to make $500,000 with the average cart value of $1,500 like dollars. So map this out. And the campaign is going to be from January 1st to March 1st. And then Chat will give me like a good baseline. And then I can say, okay, I can kind of go in and tweak timelines, and I can tweak, deliverables based on what I also know works in my business, or what I'm have the capacity to do in my business. But also, if you're new, take the strategy that we use and do collaborations. Like, people sleep on collabing. If you don't have a full budget to run a crazy campaign, somebody else may have the budget and you may have the team, or somebody else may have half the budget and you have the other half of the budget, and y'all can collab on a campaign together, and it builds both of your visual identity, both of your awareness for your target audience, and it's the best strategy out there is to collaborate with people who have your customer base or are looking for a similar customer base.
Yeah. Yeah, it's powerful stuff. And what I think is, super powerful about that sort of, campaign style, it seems, I think in a gut check, right? It seems like it's overwhelming kind of. You're like, wait, I need to come up with like an idea and like really kind of center it around this. But when you really break it down and kind of get out of that headspace for a second, I almost feel like it's easier, right? Like you have one goal you're working towards, like I think what causes overwhelm for a lot of people is not having that sort of goal to work towards and a uniform thing that you're doing. It's just kind of scattered all over the place. So, um, well, I think this has been super, super valuable. Those are very tactical things people can go and apply in their business right now. So, thank you for sharing all that. That's certainly valuable. Just a couple questions to wrap it up here. So, looking back, from day one, I know you said you kind of missed those days, right? Like really in the building phase. What's one piece of advice you'd give yourself or someone else about building a successful business who's maybe in that very beginning, grind?
Yeah. Um, when I was in the beginning, I wish that I would have documented more of what I was doing on a day to day and processes and systems and like why behind what I was doing because that beginning data is really pivotal. It's literally your foundation of what you build on, and I don't have some of that those thoughts that I used to have because I didn't write it down. And then also I would have been able to probably have a stronger team by now if I had a deeper like SOP system or like documentation system or like video system already created. And so I would tell anyone like even on your day to day, get on Zoom and record yourself. Like just do your regular day on Zoom, on record, or however on Otter, or how whatever recording platform you utilize, just so you can start getting like answering emails or why do you respond that way or why do you create a campaign or why do you do this or why do you teach like that. It's You'll be surprised how much you'll need that stuff when you start really trying to scale. So I would say document everything. I wish I would have did that more.
Yeah. That's such a powerful answer. It's something that I wish, feel like I look back at my like 4 years that I've been just doing various things online through like affiliate campaigns and sales roles and all this stuff. And I look back, I'm like, when you think about knowledge and information that you can share or even sell or impart on people, it's like, man, it was all right there and I didn't document it. Like the questions people would have, I could already have the answers laid out in a way because I've done it. So it's such a good point. And it's funny too. It's like one of those things I hear people say that so frequently, right? It's like, dang, I wish I, had the notes or I was journaling or doing something to document the process because it'd be so valuable for people now. So if you're hearing that, I agree with that sentiment. I've heard a lot of people say it. So if you're you're in the beginning here, or even at any point, guess start documenting, right? It's super, super valuable. Um, Last thing then, Stormy, one more time, where can our listeners here find you, learn from you, and utilize your services?
Yeah. Definitely follow me on IG at I am Stormy Banks, and that's Stormy with an I. And then if you're interested in working with Pinkprint, we're at www.pinkprintfirm.com.
Okay, awesome. Stormy, thank you so much for this. It was super valuable. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Grant. I appreciate you.